The Galactic Forum was the largest structure ever built by living beings. It floated at the heart of the Orion Arm like a metal flower, its petals spreading outward for thousands of kilometers. 847 species kept embassies here. They came to trade, to argue, to make peace, and sometimes to declare war. Today was a war day. Director Elena Vasquez sat in the human section of the Grand Assembly Hall. The seats around her were mostly empty. Humanity had only been a member of the galactic community for 73 years, and most species still thought of them as newcomers. Children, really. A young species that had barely learned to walk among the stars. Elena didn't mind the empty seats. It gave her room to stretch her legs. On the central platform below, the Vexari delegation was preparing for their announcement. There were 12 of them, each standing over 2 meters tall. Their skin was the color of dried blood, and their faces were all sharp angles and hard edges. They wore armor even here, in a place of diplomacy. The Vexari always wore armor. It was part of who they were. Elena pulled a bag of chips from her pocket and opened it quietly. A few nearby aliens turned to look at her with confusion. She smiled and offered them the bag. They declined. High Commander Zethrak stepped forward to the speaking platform. He was the largest of the Vexari present, with scars running across his face like rivers on a map. He had conquered 30 worlds personally. His name was spoken with fear across 100 systems. He raised his arms and the hall fell silent. "I speak now the words of total battle," Zethrak announced. His voice was deep and rough, like stones grinding together. "I speak them before the assembled peoples of the galaxy, as is required by ancient law. I speak them so that all may witness and none may claim ignorance." Elena ate another chip. "The Vexari Dominion has ruled the stars for 6,000 years," Zethrak continued. "We have conquered 200 worlds. We have defeated every enemy who dared to challenge us. Our warriors are the finest in the galaxy. Our ships darken the skies of every world we choose to take." Several species in the hall shifted nervously. The Vexari reputation was well earned. They were not boasting. They were simply stating facts. "For too long, we have watched the humans spread across the stars," Zethrak said. He turned to look directly at the human section. His yellow eyes found Elena and fixed on her. "They are weak. They are soft. They speak of peace and friendship like these are virtues. They do not understand that the galaxy belongs to the strong." Elena waved at him with her chip-free hand. Zethrak's eye twitched slightly, but he continued. "The humans have insulted us. They have refused to acknowledge our superiority. They have treated us as equals when they should kneel before us." This was not entirely true. The humans had simply treated the Vexari the same way they treated everyone else, with polite friendliness and offers to trade. Apparently, this was an insult. "Therefore," Zethrak declared, "the Vexari Dominion proclaims total battle against the species known as humanity." A gasp ran through the assembly hall. Total battle was the most extreme form of war in galactic law. It meant complete destruction. No surrender would be accepted. No mercy would be given. Neutral parties were forbidden from interfering. It was a declaration of absolute annihilation. Zethrak was not finished. The ritual required 40 minutes of formal declarations, listing every grievance, every insult, every justification for the war. He spoke of human arrogance. He spoke of human weakness, pretending to be strength. He spoke of how the Vexari would burn human worlds and scatter human ashes across the void. Elena ate her chips and listened politely. When Zethrak finally finished, the hall was completely silent. Every species present was watching the human section, waiting to see how they would respond. Would they beg? Would they plead for mercy? Would they try to negotiate? Elena stood up, brushing crumbs from her uniform. She walked down to the speaking platform with an easy, relaxed stride. She was a small woman, barely reaching Zethrak's chest, but she didn't seem bothered by this. "Hi," she said. "That was quite a speech. Very dramatic. I especially liked the part about scattering our ashes. Very poetic." Zethrak stared at her. This was not the response he had expected. "You understand what total battle means, human?" he asked. "Sure," Elena said. "No surrender, no mercy, fight to the death, all that stuff. It's in the manual." then you understand that your species will be destroyed. Hmm. Elena tilted her head, thinking about this. See, that's where I'm a bit confused. Are you sure you want to do this? Like, really sure? Because once you start, you can't take it back. Zethrick's mandibles clicked together in what might have been a laugh. Do you think we fear you? Your species has no military alliances. You have no great fleet. You have no conquered territories to draw warriors from. You are a lone human, and you are weak. Okay, but I just want to make sure you've thought this through, Elena said. Total battle is a big commitment. Very serious. Maybe you should sleep on it. The hall was so quiet that Elena could hear her own heartbeat. The other species were watching this exchange with a mixture of horror and confusion. The human was either very brave or very stupid. They couldn't tell which. Zethrak leaned down until his face was close to Elena's. His breath smelled like metal and something else she couldn't identify. We have 40,000 warships, he said slowly, as if explaining something to a child. We have warriors who have trained for battle since birth. We have weapons that can crack planets. What do you have, human? Elena reached into her pocket and pulled out her communicator. She pressed a button. Hey, she said into it. So the Vexari just declared total battle on us. Yeah, the full thing. No, I'm not joking. It's actually kind of exciting. Should I tell them yes? She listened for a moment, nodding. Okay, cool, thanks. She put the communicator away and looked up at Zethrak. All right, accepted. When do you want to start? For a long moment, Zethrak didn't move. He had expected fear. He had expected begging. He had expected the humans to flee from the Forum in terror, trying desperately to prepare for the destruction coming their way. He had not expected a small woman with chip crumbs on her uniform to casually accept the end of her species over a phone call. You accept? He repeated. Sure, Elena said. I mean, you went through that whole ritual and everything. It would be rude to say no after all that effort. Your people will die. Maybe, Elena shrugged. Or maybe not. I guess we'll find out. The other species in the hall began to whisper among themselves. Some thought the humans had simply lost their minds. Others thought they didn't understand what they had agreed to. A few wondered if perhaps, just perhaps, the humans knew something that the rest of the galaxy didn't. Ambassador Threlix of the Syndicate rose from his seat. He was an old creature, with scales that had faded from green to gray over his centuries of life. He had seen many wars declared in this hall. Director Vasquez, he called out, does your species fully understand the nature of total battle? Perhaps we should delay these proceedings until your government can be properly consulted. Elena turned to him with a smile. That's very kind of you, Ambassador. But we understand perfectly. The Vexari want to destroy us completely. We've agreed to let them try. It seems straightforward to me. Let them try, Zethrak growled. You speak as if you have a choice in the matter. Everyone has choices, High Commander, Elena said. Her tone was still light, still casual, but something in her eyes had changed. For just a moment, Zethrak saw something there that he didn't recognize. It wasn't fear. It wasn't anger. It was almost like amusement. Our fleet will depart within the standard cycle, Zethrak announced, recovering his composure. We will begin with your outer colonies and work our way to your homeworld. We will leave nothing behind but dust and memory. Sounds like a plan, Elena said. Do you need directions? I can send you a map. Zethrak turned and walked away without another word. His delegation followed. They had come to declare war on a species they expected to crush easily. They were leaving with a strange feeling in their stomachs that none of them could explain. Elena watched them go, then turned back to the assembled species. She was still smiling. Well, that was interesting, she said. Does anyone want to grab lunch? I know a great place on level 47. They do these noodles that are absolutely amazing. The hall remained frozen in shock. Ambassador Threlix slowly sat back down. In his long life, he had seen countless species face the threat of extinction. He had seen them weep. He had seen them rage. He had seen them desperately try to form alliances to save themselves. He had never seen one ask if anyone wanted noodles. As Elena walked toward the exit, she passed the section where the collective of minds kept their delegation. One of their representatives, a being made of interconnected organic processors, reached out to stop her. Human, it said, its voice a chorus of many speaking as one. Why are you not afraid? Elena paused and looked at the being with genuine warmth in her eyes. Should I be? She asked. The Vexari have never lost a war. Their fleet is vast. Their warriors are fierce. By every calculation, your species should be in panic. Elena considered this for a moment. Then she laughed, a light and easy sound that seemed completely wrong for someone who had just accepted a war of annihilation. The thing about calculations, she said, is that they're only as good as the information you put into them. She patted the collective representative on what might have been its shoulder. Don't worry about us, she said. We'll be fine. And hey, if you're ever near Earth, you should visit. We throw great parties. Then she walked out of the hall, leaving behind 846 species who were all asking themselves the same question. What did the humans know that they didn't? The Vexari armada dropped out of faster-than-light travel, like a swarm of metal insects descending on prey. 8,000 warships spread across the Kepler 442 system, their weapons charging, their crews ready for battle. High Commander Zethrak stood on the bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Conquest. Through the massive view screen, he could see the human colony world below. It was a green and blue jewel floating in the darkness, covered with farms and small cities. An agricultural world, a soft target. He had chosen this world specifically for the first attack. It was far from Earth, poorly defended, and filled with civilians. Its destruction would send a message to all of humanity. Run, hide, beg for mercy. Nothing would save them. Scan the system, Zethrak ordered. His sensor officer worked the controls for a moment, then looked up with confusion on his face. High Commander, I am detecting only one defensive installation, a small station in orbit. Crew complement appears to be approximately 200. Zethrak turned to stare at him. One station? For an entire colony? Yes, High Commander. I have scanned 3 times. There are no other military assets in the system. This made no sense. The humans had received the declaration of total battle days ago. They should have evacuated this world or filled it with defensive weapons. Instead, they had left it almost completely unprotected. Perhaps they really were as foolish as they seemed. Open a channel to the colony, Zethrak commanded. They will witness their own destruction with whatever dignity they can find. The communication officer worked his controls, and a human face appeared on the view screen. It was an older man with gray hair and tired eyes. He was wearing what looked like a casual shirt, not a military uniform. Behind him, Zethrak could see other humans playing some kind of game with small paper cards. Hello there, the human said. This is Defense Station Kepler. I'm Commander James Chen. How can I help you? Zethrak blinked. The human sounded like he was answering a customer service call. I am High Commander Zethrak of the Vexari Dominion, he announced. I have come to begin the destruction of your species. This world will be the first to fall. Oh, right, the total battle thing, Chen said. He yawned, covering his mouth politely. Sorry about that. We're in the middle of a poker tournament here. Can this wait? Several of Zethrak's bridge officers looked at each other. Was this human joking? Was he insane? Did he not understand what was about to happen? Your world will burn, Zethrak said, speaking slowly and clearly. Every man, woman, and child on that planet will die. Your farms will become ash. Your cities will become craters. Nothing will remain. That sounds pretty serious, Chen agreed. He didn't seem very worried about it. Look, we're right in the middle of a really important hand here. Lieutenant Park has been bluffing all night, and I think I finally have her figured out. Can you give us maybe an hour? An hour? Sure. Time to finish the game, say our goodbyes, that sort of thing. It's only polite. Zethrak's claws dug into the armrest of his command chair. He had faced many enemies in his long career. Well, he had seen species cower before him. He had seen them fight back with desperate fury. He had never seen one ask for extra time to finish a card game. You have no time, he growled. Your destruction begins now. He cut the communication channel and turned to his weapons officer. All ships open fire. Target the orbital station first, then begin bombardment of the surface. 8,000 Vexari warships turned their weapons toward the tiny human station. Plasma cannons charged. Missile bays opened. Energy beams powered up. The combined firepower was enough to destroy a small moon. They fired. The space around the station lit up with the fury of 8,000 ships. Beams of destruction streaked toward their target from every direction. Missiles raced through the void. Plasma bolts turned the darkness into day. And then something strange happened. The weapons fire reached the station and simply stopped. Not deflected, not absorbed. Stopped. The plasma bolts hung in space like frozen raindrops. The missiles floated motionless, their engines still burning but moving nowhere. The energy beams became solid lines of light that ended in midair. Zethrak leaned forward in his chair. "What is happening?" His weapons officer was frantically working his controls. "I do not know, High Commander. Our weapons are firing correctly. They simply stop when they reach a certain distance from the station." "That is impossible." "Yes, High Commander, it is." On the view screen, thousands of weapons hung frozen in space, creating a strange and beautiful pattern around the tiny human station. It looked like a flower made of light and fire. Then music started playing. It came through every speaker on the Eternal Conquest. It came through every speaker on every ship in the fleet. It was strange human music, fast and cheerful, with instruments that the Vexari didn't recognize. Someone was playing a horn. Someone else was hitting drums in a complicated rhythm. And under it all, a human voice was singing about sunshine and good times. "What is this?" Zethrak demanded. "I believe it is called jazz, High Commander," his cultural officer said nervously. "It is a form of human music that originated on their homeworld several centuries ago." "Turn it off." "I am trying, High Commander. It is playing through our communication systems. I cannot stop it." The music continued, bouncy and cheerful, completely wrong for a battle. And then, over the music, came the sound of humans laughing. Commander Chen's face appeared on the view screen again. He was smiling. "Sorry about the playlist," he said. "Lieutenant Kim controls the broadcast, and she has weird taste in music. Anyway, I noticed you tried to shoot us. How did that work out for you?" Zethrak was gripping his armrest so hard that the metal was starting to bend. "What have you done to our weapons?" "Oh, that's a little trick we picked up a while back. We call it a stasis field. Any energy that enters it just sort of pauses. Cool, right? Release our weapons." Chen appeared to think about this. "No, I don't think I will. They look kind of pretty floating there like that. Very artistic." Before Zethrak could respond, alarms started sounding across his ship. All over the fleet, the same alarms were ringing. "High Commander," his engineering officer shouted. "Our weapon systems are shutting down." "Then start them up again." "I cannot. The control systems are not responding." Across the Vexari fleet, chaos was spreading. Ships that had been ready for battle moments ago were now going dark. Weapons powered down. Engines fell silent. Lights flickered and dimmed. But life support stayed on. The gravity systems kept working. The Vexari crews were perfectly safe. They simply couldn't do anything. "How are you doing this?" Zethrak demanded. Chen shrugged. "We're humans. We're good with machines." "This is impossible. You cannot take control of 8,000 ships simultaneously." "Can't we?" Chen scratched his chin thoughtfully. "I mean, we just did, so it seems like we can." Zethrak stood from his command chair. His entire fleet was helpless. 8,000 of the finest warships in the galaxy had been disabled without a single shot being fired in return. This was not possible. This should not be possible. "You will pay for this," he snarled. "Maybe," Chen said. "Or maybe we'll just sit here and chat for a while. You know, get to know each other. Would you like some coffee? I can't actually send you any from here, but I could describe what it tastes like." "I will destroy you." "With what? Your weapons don't work. Your engines don't work. The only thing keeping your crews alive right now is that we're letting your life support run." Chen's voice became slightly more serious. "We could turn that off, too. We could have turned it off first, but we didn't. Why do you think that is?" Zethrak had no answer. "Here's what's going to happen," Chen continued. "We're going to release your ships in about an hour. Your weapons and engines will work again. You can fly home and tell your leaders what happened here today. And then you can try again if you want. We'll be here. The music might be different next time, though. Lieutenant Kim is on a oldies kick, so you might get some really weird stuff." The communication channel closed. The jazz music continued to play. For a long time, Zethrak stood on his silent bridge, surrounded by disabled systems and confused officers. He had come here expecting to begin a war of annihilation. He had expected human screams and human begging and human blood. Instead, he had been neutralized by a force he didn't understand, mocked by an old man in a casual shirt, and forced to listen to music. The worst part was that he wasn't even angry anymore. He was something worse. He was curious. What were these humans? How did they have technology that could freeze energy and disable ships without killing? Why hadn't they killed his crews when they clearly could have? Exactly 1 hour later, as promised, the systems came back online. The frozen weapons dissolved into harmless particles. The engines hummed back to life. Zethrak ordered his fleet to retreat. As they jumped to faster-than-light travel, the last thing they heard was Commander Chen's voice over the communication channel. "Same time tomorrow? We're having a movie night, but I could probably take a break to say hello." Then the stars stretched into lines, and the Vexari fled from a world they had expected to easily destroy. Behind them, on the tiny orbital station, Lieutenant Park won the poker game with a pair of sevens and a very good bluff. Commander Chen paid his losses with a smile, ate a sandwich, and went back to reading his book. The colony below continued farming. None of them had ever really been in danger, and they all knew it. The High Council of the Vexari Dominion had not gathered in emergency session for 300 years. The last time had been when a plague threatened to wipe out their entire species. That crisis had been solved through brutal quarantine and the sacrifice of 2 billion lives. This crisis was different. This crisis made no sense. Zethrak stood before the council, his armor still scarred from battles fought decades ago, his pride scarred from something that had happened only days before. Around him sat the 12 most powerful Vexari in the Dominion, old warriors who had conquered worlds and broken empires. They were all looking at him with expressions he had never seen before. Not anger, not disappointment, confusion. "Explain this again," demanded Council Elder Vrektal. His voice was like gravel being crushed. "You had 8,000 ships. The humans had one station." "That is correct, Elder." "And you lost." Zethrak forced himself to stand straight. "We did not lose. We were not defeated. We were simply prevented from attacking." "That sounds like losing." "It was not." Zethrak took a breath, calming himself. "Our weapons fired. They simply stopped before reaching the target. Then the humans disabled our ships without harming our crews. When they released us, we withdrew to assess the situation." Elder Cratherix leaned forward. She was the oldest member of the council, her scales faded to almost white, her eyes still sharp. "You withdrew from a station with 200 crew members, with 8,000 warships." "Yes. And you did not try again?" "The humans said we could try again the next day. They seemed to find it amusing." The word hung in the air. Amusing. The Vexari had never been amusing to anyone. They were feared. They were respected. They were hated. But they were not funny. "What do we know about these humans?" Crathrix asked. "Beyond what is in the standard databases?" The council's intelligence officer stepped forward. His name was Morthon, and he had spent his entire career studying potential enemies. He looked nervous, which was unusual for him. "We have been researching the humans extensively since the High Commander's return," he said. "What we have found is disturbing." "Speak." Morthon activated a display screen. Images began to appear. Human cities, human ships, human colonies. "The humans have been in space for only 300 of their years. In that time, they have colonized over 200 worlds. This is a faster expansion rate than any species in recorded galactic history." "They breed quickly," Frechtel said dismissively. "Many weak species do." "That was our assumption as well," Morthon continued, "but it does not explain other things we have found." He changed the image. "They have no conquered territories. Every world they inhabit, they built themselves. They have no vassal species, no servant races, no slaves." "They are too weak to conquer," another council member suggested. "Perhaps. But they are apparently strong enough to disable 8,000 warships without causing a single death." Morthon's voice was careful. "And there is more." He changed the image again. This time it showed records, documents, reports from across the galaxy. For decades, humans have been quietly helping other species. They share medical technology freely, asking nothing in return. They send disaster relief to worlds they have no connection to. They offer agricultural assistance to anyone who asks. Charity? Krathric sounded disgusted. They give their strength away to strangers? It seems so. But this is not all. Morthon hesitated. We found records of 3 separate incidents where human intervention prevented genocide. In each case, they acted quietly without claiming credit. The species they saved do not even know humans were involved. The council was silent. Why would they do this? Zethrak asked. What do they gain? We do not know. It makes no sense by our understanding of power and survival, but it is what they do. Morthon closed the display. The humans appear weak because they choose to appear weak. They have capabilities they do not show. They have power they do not use. We declared total battle on them expecting easy prey. I believe we were mistaken. Far across the galaxy, on a small blue world called Earth, the human reaction to total battle was very different from what the Vexari imagined. In a sports bar in Chicago, a group of friends was watching the battle footage from Kepler 442 on a large screen. Someone had set it to music, adding commentary and slow-motion replays of the frozen weapons. "Look at their faces," one man shouted, laughing. "They have no idea what's happening. Did you see when Chen asked them for an hour? I thought that big one was going to explode. Play it again. Play the jazz part again." Across the planet, similar scenes were happening. The Vexari attack had become entertainment. People were streaming the footage, adding their own edits, creating remixes. Someone had already written a song about it. Someone else was selling t-shirts. In Hollywood, 3 different studios were fighting over the rights to make a movie. In New York, a comedian was doing a bit about Vexari fashion choices that was getting millions of views. In Tokyo, an artist had created a cartoon version of Commander Chen that was becoming extremely popular. The military was treating the whole thing like a training exercise. Reports were filed, performance was evaluated, suggestions for improvement were noted. No one was particularly worried. In a quiet office in Geneva, Admiral Yuki Tanaka read those reports with a small frown on her face. She was an older woman, her hair more silver than black now, her uniform covered with medals she rarely wore. She had commanded Humanity's Defense Forces for 20 years. Her aide, a young captain named Marcus Webb, stood at attention nearby. "The Vexari will try again," Tanaka said. "Yes, Admiral. Our analysis suggests they will attack in greater force within the month. They'll bring their entire fleet, every ship they have. Most likely." Tanaka set down the report. "And when we stop them again, what then?" Webb hesitated. This was the question everyone in command had been asking. "We're not sure, Admiral. The Vexari have never faced an enemy they couldn't defeat. They may not know how to respond. They'll either learn or they'll break." Tanaka stood and walked to her window. Outside, Geneva was peaceful and green, people going about their lives without fear. "I don't want them to break, Marcus." "Admiral?" "The Vexari are a proud people. They've built their entire civilization on the idea that strength is the only virtue. If we destroy that idea too quickly, too completely, it could shatter them." She turned back to her aide. "We've seen it happen before. Species that lose their sense of identity, they don't recover well. With respect, Admiral, they declared total battle on us. They want to destroy our entire species." "I know. And we could destroy them instead. We've had that capability for a long time." Tanaka's voice was heavy. "But that's not who we are. That's not who we want to be." Back on the Vexari homeworld, in a small office far from the council chambers, a young officer named Kethra was doing her own research. She was Zethrak's daughter, though few knew this. He had insisted she earn her place through merit, not blood. She had done so, rising through the intelligence division on her own abilities. Now she was staring at a screen full of data that made her question everything she had been taught. The humans had technology that could pause energy itself. They had the ability to take control of foreign ships without causing damage. They had been in space for only 3 centuries, but they had capabilities that the Vexari had never developed in 6,000 years, and they hadn't killed a single Vexari. Kethra pulled up more records. She found human medical ships responding to plagues on distant worlds, human engineers helping rebuild after natural disasters, human teachers sharing knowledge freely. She found something else too: records of human history translated into galactic standard, stories of human wars, human cruelty, human destruction. The humans had done terrible things to each other over the centuries. They had invented weapons capable of ending their own species. They had nearly destroyed themselves multiple times, but they hadn't. They had survived. They had learned. And now they were in the stars, stronger than anyone had realized, using that strength to help instead of conquer. Kethra sat back in her chair, her mind racing. The humans weren't acting casual because they were foolish. They weren't treating total battle like a joke because they didn't understand the danger. They were relaxed because they had already won, and they knew it. More than that, they were trying not to hurt the Vexari. Every action they had taken was designed to demonstrate power without causing death. They could have killed 8,000 crews. They had chosen not to. Why? Kethra remembered something her father had told her once, long ago. A true warrior knows when to fight and when to wait. But the greatest warrior knows when not to fight at all. Had the humans learned this lesson? Had they figured out something that the Vexari, in 6,000 years of conquest, had never understood? She stood and walked to her father's quarters. She found him there, staring at a display of the human colony that had humiliated him. "Father," she said, "I need to tell you something." "Speak." "The humans, they're not afraid of us." She took a deep breath. "They never were. I think they're trying not to hurt us." Zethrak turned to look at his daughter. His eyes were tired in a way she had never seen before. "I know," he said quietly. "I've been thinking the same thing." "What do we do?" Zethrak was silent for a long moment. Outside his window, the Vexari homeworld spread out beneath them, millions of warriors ready to fight, thousands of ships ready to launch. "I don't know," he admitted. "For the first time in my life, I don't know." In orbit above Earth, the defense networks hummed quietly, watching, waiting. They could track every ship in the galaxy. They could destroy threats that were still light years away. They were among the most powerful weapons ever created. They had never been used for destruction. The humans had built them to protect, not to conquer, to defend, not to attack, to ensure that no one could hurt them while giving themselves the choice to never hurt anyone else. It was a choice they made every day, and they were very, very good at it. Zethrak had gathered every ship the Vexari Dominion possessed. 40,000 warships hung in formation, the largest fleet assembled in 3 centuries. Every warrior who could fight was present. Every weapon that could fire was loaded. This time, there would be no mistakes. This time, they would strike at the heart of human civilization itself. This time, they would show the galaxy what happened to those who dared to embarrass the Vexari. They jumped to the Sol system expecting to find a homeworld to burn. What they found instead changed everything. The Vexari fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel, and immediately every sensor on every ship began screaming warnings. Zethrak stared at his view screen, his blood running cold. Earth was there, a blue and green world wrapped in white clouds. But between the Vexari fleet and humanity's homeworld was something that should not exist. Massive structures floated in space, shapes that hurt to look at. Some appeared to exist in more than 3 dimensions, folding in on themselves in ways that made no sense. Others were simply huge, platforms the size of moons bristling with devices that the Vexari sensors couldn't identify. And there were ships, not hundreds, not thousands, millions. They weren't shaped like human vessels from the galactic records. They were something else, sleek and strange and somehow alive-looking. They surrounded the Vexari fleet on all sides, above and below, a sphere of unimaginable force. "What is this?" Zethrak whispered. His sensor officer was pale, his hands shaking as he worked the controls. "High Commander, I am reading power levels that exceed anything in our records. These structures, these ships, they should not be possible." "How many?" "I cannot count them all. Millions, at minimum. And their weapons—" The officer stopped, unable to continue. "Their weapons? Each of those moon-sized platforms has enough firepower to destroy our entire fleet. There are dozens of them." Zethrak sat down slowly. He had brought 40,000 ships. The humans had millions. He had brought weapons that could crack planets. The humans had weapons that could crack stars. A communication channel opened without his permission. A human face appeared on the screen. She was an older woman with silver hair and calm eyes. She wore a simple uniform with many marks of rank. "High Commander Zethrak," she said. Her voice was gentle. "I am Admiral Yuki Tanaka, Commander of Human Defense Forces. Welcome to Seoul." Zethrak found his voice. "You have been hiding your true strength." "Yes." "Why?" Admiral Tanaka smiled sadly. "Because we didn't want to frighten anyone. Because we wanted to make friends, not subjects. Because we learned a long time ago that power used to intimidate only creates enemies." "How long have you had this capability?" "Since before you knew we existed. Since before most species in the galaxy knew we existed. We found things, High Commander. Ancient things left behind by civilizations that died long ago. We learned from their mistakes." Zethrak looked at the impossible fleet surrounding his own. "You could have conquered the galaxy." "Yes." "Why didn't you?" Tanaka leaned forward slightly. "Let me tell you a story, High Commander. When humans first went into space, we were afraid. Afraid of what we might find, afraid of being alone, afraid of being too weak to survive. Then we found the ruins." She paused and something old passed across her face. "We found dead civilizations everywhere. Species that had risen to greatness and then destroyed each other. Empires that had conquered thousands of worlds only to collapse into civil war. Races that had built weapons capable of ending all life and then used them. The galaxy is a graveyard, High Commander. We are walking through the bones of the dead." "We found those ruins too," Zethrak said. "We took what was useful and moved on. We did something different. We asked ourselves why. Why did all these civilizations fail? They were smart. They were powerful. They had everything they needed to survive forever. But they all died. And what answer did you find?" "They were afraid." Tanaka's voice was soft. "They were afraid of each other. They saw every other species as a threat to be eliminated. They built weapons instead of bridges. They conquered instead of cooperated. And in the end, they destroyed each other and themselves." Zethrak was silent, listening. "We decided we would not make the same mistake. We built defenses that would make us impossible to conquer. And then we did something that no species before us had ever done." Tanaka smiled. "We stopped. We stopped building weapons. We stopped looking for enemies. We started looking for friends." Friends! The concept was strange to Zethrak. The Vexari had allies of convenience, vassal states, conquered peoples. They did not have friends. Species we could help, species we could learn from, species who might teach us things we didn't know. Tanaka spread her hands. "We've been out here for 3 centuries, High Commander. We've made contact with hundreds of species. We've helped dozens of them through crises. We've never conquered anyone. We've never destroyed anyone. We've never even threatened anyone. Until now. We're not threatening you now. We're showing you the truth." Tanaka's voice became serious. "We could end your species in an afternoon, High Commander. We could crack your homeworld like an egg. We've had that capability since before your grandfather was born. But we don't want to. We never wanted to. We just wanted neighbors." Zethrak looked at the impossible fleet surrounding his ships. He thought about the frozen weapons at Kepler 442. He thought about the 8,000 crews who had been spared when they could have been killed. He thought about humans sending doctors to plague worlds and engineers to disaster zones. "You could destroy us," he said slowly. "But you won't." "No, because you want to be our friends. Because we want you to choose to be our friends." Tanaka leaned back. "We can't force you to like us. We can't make you stop being afraid of the galaxy. We can only show you that there's another way, a better way. And if we continue the war, if we refuse your friendship, then we'll keep stopping your attacks. We'll keep sparing your crews. We'll keep waiting." Tanaka's smile returned. "We're very patient, High Commander. We can wait a very long time." Zethrak sat on his bridge, surrounded by his officers, facing a fleet that could destroy him without effort. He thought about 6,000 years of Vexari history. 6,000 years of conquest and blood and glory. 6,000 years of believing that strength meant taking what you wanted. And here were the humans, stronger than anyone had ever been, using their strength to protect and to heal and to wait. "What do you want from us?" he asked. "Nothing you don't want to give. No tribute, no submission, no vassalage." Tanaka folded her hands. "We want to trade with you, learn from you, share what we've discovered. We want to invite you to movie nights and music festivals and scientific conferences. We want to argue with you about philosophy and laugh with you about the absurdity of existence." "That's all?" "That's everything, High Commander. That's what we've been trying to find since we first looked up at the stars. Not subjects, not slaves, not enemies. Just people. People to talk to, people to learn from, people to share the universe with." Sethrak was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something he had never done in his entire career. He laughed. It was a strange sound, harsh and unpracticed, but it was genuine. The human had just offered him friendship in the shadow of a fleet that could end his species. It was the most ridiculous thing that had ever happened to him. "You are insane," he said. "All of you. Your entire species is insane." "Probably," Tanaka agreed, "but it seems to be working for us. I cannot make this decision alone. I must consult with my council." "Of course. Take all the time you need. We're not going anywhere." Tanaka glanced at something off-screen. "Actually, while you're deciding, would you like some coffee? We can send a shuttle over with refreshments. It seems like you've had a long trip." Zethrak stared at her. "You're offering me coffee. It's good coffee. We grow it on a colony in the Tau Ceti system. Very smooth, with notes of chocolate. I have 40,000 warships pointed at your homeworld, and we have several million pointed at yours. But that doesn't mean we can't be civilized about things." Behind Zethrak, his daughter Kethra made a sound that might have been a suppressed laugh. He turned to look at her. She was younger than most of his bridge officers, but she had always been smart. Now she was looking at the view screen with an expression he didn't recognize. "Something to say, intelligence officer?" Kethra straightened. "Permission to speak freely, High Commander?" "Granted. I think she's serious, Father. I think they've been serious this entire time. They don't want to destroy us. They want to invite us to coffee. That is not how the galaxy works. Maybe it should be." Kethra stepped forward. "We've spent 6,000 years conquering and killing. What do we have to show for it? Enemies on every border. Species that hate us. A reputation that makes everyone afraid." She gestured at the human fleet. "They've spent 3 centuries helping people, and now they have this. Maybe they know something we don't." Zethrak looked at his daughter, then at the impossible fleet, then at the human admiral waiting patiently on his screen. "Send the shuttle," he said finally. "I want to try this coffee." Admiral Tanaka smiled. "I think you'll like it," she said. "And High Commander, whatever you decide about the war, whatever your council says, the invitation stands. We'll keep offering friendship as long as it takes." "Why?" "Because that's who we are." Tanaka's eyes were warm. "We're humans. We don't give up on people. Even people who want to destroy us. Especially people who want to destroy us." The communication channel closed. Around the Vexari fleet, millions of human ships waited in patient silence. They could have ended everything in seconds. They chose to make coffee instead. 5 years had passed since the day Zethrak brought his fleet to Sol and found an empire that could have destroyed his people with a thought. 5 years since he had tasted human coffee and discovered that he liked it. 5 years since everything had changed. Now he walked through the streets of Vexar Prime's capital city, and what he saw would have been impossible to imagine back then. Human shops stood next to Vexari ones, selling strange foods and stranger music. Human teachers worked in Vexari schools, sharing knowledge freely. Human doctors staffed clinics that treated diseases the Vexari had suffered from for centuries. And everywhere, there was laughter. The Vexari had not been a laughing people. For 6,000 years, they had been serious and grim and focused on conquest. But the humans had brought something with them that spread like a virus, the idea that life could be enjoyed. Zethrak stopped at a small cafe where a human woman was teaching a group of young Vexari how to play something called a guitar. The sounds they made were terrible, but they were smiling. Vexari children, smiling. He had never seen that before the humans came. His daughter Ketharai appeared beside him, walking with a human man in civilian clothes. They were laughing about something. "Father," she said, "Samuel was just telling me about something called a whoopee cushion. Apparently, humans used to use them to embarrass each other." Samuel Okonkwo was a diplomat, one of the first humans to establish permanent residence on Vexar Prime. He was old, his hair white, his dark face lined with decades of smiles. He had become something like a friend to the Zethrak family. "It's a simple device," Samuel explained. "You hide it in someone's chair. When they sit down, it makes a rude noise. Everyone laughs." "Why would anyone laugh at a rude noise?" Zethrak asked. "Because it's unexpected. Because it reminds us not to take ourselves too seriously." Samuel's eyes twinkled. "Because sometimes the universe is absurd, and the only proper response is to laugh." Zethrak shook his head. He still didn't fully understand humans. He suspected he never would. "The council meeting is today," Kethra said, her voice becoming more serious. "Are you ready?" Zethrak nodded. Today, the Vexari High Council would vote on the formal alliance with humanity. It had taken 5 years of negotiation, 5 years of building trust, 5 years of learning to see the galaxy differently. He remembered the other species who had declared total battle on humanity before the Vexari. 17 of them, spread across 3 centuries. The humans had shown him their histories. Each one had attacked, been stopped without casualties, and eventually become allies. The Drenics, who had tried to poison human worlds with biological weapons. The humans had cured the diseases and then cured diseases on Drenics worlds that the Drenics themselves couldn't treat. The collective of minds, who had tried to hack human systems and take control of their ships. The humans had blocked them, then shared cybersecurity technology that protected the collective from their own enemies. The Threll Confederacy, who had ambushed human colony ships. The humans had rescued their own people and then helped the Threll rebuild after a natural disaster struck their homeworld. Over and over, the same pattern: attack, defense, mercy, hostility, patience, friendship. "How do you do it?" Zethrak had asked Samuel once. "How do you keep forgiving enemies who want to destroy you?" Samuel had thought about the question for a long time before answering. "We remember what we used to be," he said finally. "Humans spent a long time hurting each other. Wars, genocides, cruelty on a scale that shames us to remember. We came very close to destroying ourselves more than once. What stopped you? People who chose differently. People who broke the cycle of revenge. People who decided that the future mattered more than the past." Samuel had smiled sadly. "It wasn't easy. It took centuries. But eventually we learned. We learned that enemies can become friends. We learned that forgiveness is stronger than vengeance. We learned that building is more satisfying than destroying." Now Zethrak stood before the High Council, 12 ancient warriors who had conquered worlds and broken empires. They looked different than they had 5 years ago. Some of them had adopted human customs. One was wearing a human hat. Another had developed a taste for something called ice cream. "High Commander," said Council Elder Vrektal. He was using Zethrak's old title out of respect, though Zethrak had retired from military command years ago. "You have spent 5 years working with the humans. You have learned their ways, studied their history, walked among them. What is your recommendation?" Zethrak looked at the council members one by one. These were his people, proud warriors who had never known anything but conquest. "When I brought our fleet to Seoul," he said, "I expected to find an enemy to destroy. Instead, I found something I didn't understand. A species that had more power than anyone in the galaxy, using that power to help instead of conquer." He paused, gathering his thoughts. "For 5 years I have watched them. I have looked for the trick, the hidden agenda, the secret plan. I kept waiting for them to reveal their true nature, to demand tribute or submission." "And?" Krathers asked. "There is no trick. There is no hidden agenda. They are exactly what they appear to be. A species that decided to be kind when they could afford to be cruel." Zethrak walked to the center of the chamber. "We declared war on them because we thought they were weak. We threatened to destroy their species because we didn't understand why anyone would choose peace over conquest. We were wrong. They're not weak. They're stronger than we ever imagined. They simply chose to use that strength for something other than destruction. He turned to face the council fully. I have seen human doctors cure Vexari children of diseases our own medicine couldn't treat. I have seen human engineers repair infrastructure we had neglected for centuries. I have seen human teachers share knowledge they could have sold for fortunes, giving it away because they believed it would help. And what have they asked in return? Frektal demanded. Nothing. That's what you still don't understand. They ask nothing. They don't want tribute. They don't want submission. They don't want us to worship them or serve them. Then what do they want? Zethrak smiled. It still felt strange on his face, but it was becoming easier. They want to share dinner with us. They want to argue about philosophy. They want to watch movies together and laugh at jokes we don't understand. They want neighbors, Council Elder. They want friends. The chamber was silent. I recommend full alliance, Zethrak said. Not because they forced us, not because they're too strong to fight, but because they showed us something better. They showed us what we could become if we stopped being afraid of each other. The vote was unanimous. Later that day, in the Great Hall of the Galactic Forum, Zethrak stood before the assembled species of the galaxy. Representatives from hundreds of worlds watched as he approached the speaking platform. Director Elena Vasquez was there, older now but still wearing that same easy smile. She was still eating from a bag of chips. Zethrak had prepared a formal speech, full of diplomatic language and careful phrases. He looked at it, then set it aside. 5 years ago, he said, I stood in this hall and declared total battle against humanity. I expected them to beg. Instead, a small human woman asked me if I wanted to get lunch. A ripple of laughter moved through the assembly. I didn't understand then. I thought they were foolish or insane or simply too ignorant to know they should be afraid. He paused. I was the ignorant one. He turned to look at the human delegation. The humans taught me something that I never learned in 6,000 years of Vexari history. They taught me that the strongest thing a warrior can do is choose not to fight. They taught me that enemies are just friends who haven't been introduced yet. They taught me that the universe is big enough for everyone, if we're willing to share. He straightened to his full height. On behalf of the Vexari Dominion, I am here to announce our formal alliance with humanity. We come not as subjects or vassals, but as partners, as equals, as friends. The hall erupted in applause, not from the humans who had expected this. From the other species, from beings who had watched the Vexari with fear for millennia and now saw something they had never thought possible, the Vexari choosing peace. In the gallery, Elena Vasquez finished her chips and wiped her hands on her uniform. She caught Zethrak's eye and gave him a small wave. He waved back. It was such a simple gesture, a human custom, meaning hello or goodbye or just, I see you, I acknowledge you, you matter. The Vexari had no equivalent. They had never needed one. They had always been too busy fighting to notice each other. Now Zethrak understood why humans did it. After the ceremony, he found Samuel standing by a window, looking out at the stars. You've been doing this for 300 years, Zethrak said, making friends out of enemies, turning wars into alliances. How many species have you changed? I stopped counting a long time ago, Samuel said. It's not about the numbers. It's about the people. Each species we reach, each mind we change, makes the galaxy a little safer, a little kinder. Do you ever get tired of it? Tired of offering friendship to people who want to kill you? Samuel smiled. Sometimes, but then I remember something a wise human said a long time ago. She said that the best revenge is to live well. The best response to hatred is to refuse to hate back. The best way to defeat an enemy is to make them your friend. He looked at Zethrak with warm eyes. You were our enemy, High Commander. You wanted to destroy us. And now you're standing here, asking me about friendship. That's not defeat. That's victory. The only kind of victory that matters. Zethrak looked out at the stars. Somewhere out there, his homeworld was changing. His people were learning. Children were laughing in Vexari classrooms, taught by human teachers. Warriors were laying down their weapons and picking up instruments. It would take time, generations perhaps. The Vexari had 6,000 years of conquest to unlearn. But it was happening. "Thank you," he said quietly. "For what?" "For not destroying us when you could have. For being patient when we attacked you. For offering friendship when we deserved punishment." He paused. "For the coffee. It really is very good." Samuel laughed. "You're welcome. Would you like another cup?" "Yes," Zethrak said. "I would like that very much." They walked together toward the human embassy, an old warrior and an old diplomat, former enemies who had become friends. Behind them, the galaxy continued to turn. Wars were still fought, species still struggled and competed and feared each other. The universe was not yet at peace, but it was getting there, one cup of coffee at a time. And somewhere in the back of the Galactic Forum, Director Elena Vasquez opened another bag of chips and smiled to herself. The humans had come to the stars hoping to find neighbors. They had found something better. They had found family.